Do not steal, the sacred bond of trust and justice. Can do not steal truly reshape our world, transforming greed into generosity? What if ancient wisdom held the key to building economies of trust, where enough becomes a shared reality, not a distant dream? Join us as we explore the profound spiritual and economic implications of this commandment and witness how communities worldwide are answering the call to justice. Stay tuned until the very end to discover the transformative power of shared abundance. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this story to help us bring you more updated, heartwarming narratives that challenge and inspire. The fractured social fabric. The eighth commandment, "You shall not steal," is not merely a juridical injunction, a simple hands-off signpost in the moral landscape. It is a profound theological declaration, a divine articulation of the sacred bond of trust that underpins all human community. It is a recognition that within the very fabric of creation, God has woven a delicate tapestry of interdependence, where the dignity of each person is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. To steal, then, is not just to pilfer material possessions. It is to tear at this sacred tapestry, to violate the very essence of that divinely ordained relationship. Consider the marketplace of ancient Jerusalem, a vibrant hub of commerce and community. Each transaction, each exchange was a testament to a shared trust, a belief that the scales would balance, that promises would be kept. Now, see it dissolve, morph, mutate into the cold, sterile expanse of a modern stock exchange, where algorithms trade fortunes in milliseconds, and the human face is lost in the digital ether. The farmer's harvest, the fruit of his labor, stolen not by a bandit in the night, but by the subtle machinations of markets, manipulated by the weight of systemic injustice. And then, the ghost in the machine, the digital phantom, the hacker, draining bank accounts not with a blade but with a keystroke, leaving behind not blood but a chilling emptiness. We ask, when theft becomes systemic, what happens to the soul of a society? It is a question that echoes through the ages, a lament that rises from the depths of human history. For when the yours and mine become weapons, when the lines of ownership blur into a miasma of greed, the very foundations of our shared existence begin to crumble. The eighth commandment, in its stark simplicity, speaks to a reality far more profound than mere material possession. It speaks to the integrity of the human heart, the sanctity of human labor, and the divine vision of a just and harmonious world. This ancient law, etched in stone and carried through generations, is not a relic of a bygone era. It is a timeless truth, a prophetic voice crying out in the wilderness of our contemporary world. It reveals God's vision for justice, not as a cold, impersonal force, but as a healing balm, a restorative grace that seeks to mend the broken communities we have wrought. It reminds us that every act of theft, whether grand or subtle, whether physical or digital, leaves a scar, a wound in the collective soul. Think of it, Pharaoh, hoarding the grain while his people starved, his heart hardened by pride and avarice. The prophets thundered against such injustice, their words like fire, demanding a return to the covenant of justice. Wall Street's excess, the insatiable hunger for more, the accumulation of wealth divorced from the common good. It is the same ancient sin dressed in modern garb. The prophets' voices still echo, a persistent call to repentance, a plea for a society where the dignity of every person is honored, where the fruits of the earth are shared, and where the bond of trust is sacred. To steal is to deny the inherent dignity of another, to erase their contribution to the shared human project. It is to assert that one's own desires, one's own ambitions are paramount, that the other is merely a means to an end. But the eighth commandment reminds us that every person, created in the image of God, is an end in themselves, a sacred being worthy of respect and reverence. The healing of broken communities begins with the restoration of this fundamental trust. It begins with the recognition that we are all stewards of God's creation, entrusted with the responsibility to care for one another and for the earth itself. It begins with the practice of justice, not as a legalistic imposition, but as a loving embrace, a compassionate act of solidarity with those who have been wronged. This is not a call to utopian idealism, but a call to radical conversion. It is a call to examine our own hearts, to confront the subtle ways in which we may be complicit in systems of injustice. It is a call to cultivate a spirit of generosity, to share our resources, to build bridges of understanding and reconciliation. The eighth commandment is a challenge, a provocation, a summons to a higher way of being. It invites us to participate in God's ongoing work of creation, to become agents of healing and restoration in a world fractured by greed and injustice. It is a call to live not by the law of the jungle, where the strong devour the weak, but by the law of love, where the needs of the least among us are placed at the center. In the end, the question is not simply about what we take, but about what we give. It is about the kind of society we choose to build, the kind of world we choose to inhabit. Will we be architects of division or builders of communion? Will we perpetuate the cycle of theft and exploitation, or will we embrace the covenant of trust and justice that God has offered us? The choice, as always, is ours. And in that choice, we reveal the true state of our souls and the soul of our society. Let us choose, then, to honor the sacred bond of trust, to build a world where the dignity of every person is affirmed, and where the fruits of the earth are shared in justice and love. For in doing so, we not only obey the eighth commandment, but we participate in the very work of God, the work of healing and redeeming the broken heart of humanity. The land is the Lord's. From the very genesis of the Hebrew narrative, a profound and radical truth is unveiled. The concept of absolute, unmitigated ownership, as we often understand it, is a human illusion. In the sacred texts, the earth, the very ground beneath our feet, is declared not as a commodity to be exploited, but as a divine gift, a trust placed in the hands of humanity. The land is mine, God declares, a resonant pronouncement that echoes through the ages, challenging our assumptions and reshaping our understanding of property. It is a declaration that reminds us we are not sovereign masters, but rather temporary stewards, caretakers of a world that ultimately belongs to the divine. Consider the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, their sustenance provided by the miraculous manna. Each morning, a delicate, life-sustaining substance fell from the heavens, a daily reminder of God's providential care. Yet, even in this miraculous provision, a crucial lesson was embedded. He who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Exodus 16:18. It was a call to equitable distribution, a subtle rebuke against hoarding and greed. The manna was not meant to be stockpiled, but to be shared, a daily communion with God's provision. It was a tangible lesson of the ephemeral nature of material possession, a constant reminder that true sustenance comes from divine grace, not human accumulation. Then the Jubilee, a radical act of social and economic reset, a testament to God's vision of justice. Every 50th year, the trumpets sounded, a clarion call to liberation, to the restoration of balance. Debts were forgiven, lands were returned to their ancestral owners, the chains of economic servitude were broken. It was a divine mandate to prevent the entrenchment of inequality, to ensure that the fruits of the earth were shared equitably among all. The Jubilee was not merely a legalistic ritual. It was a prophetic act, a tangible expression of God's desire for a just and compassionate society. It was a recognition that unchecked accumulation of wealth leads to the degradation of human dignity and the fracturing of the social fabric. Imagine the sound of the Jubilee trumpets, a resonant blast that pierced the air, announcing a new beginning, a fresh start. It was a sound of hope, a sound of liberation, a sound that challenged the very foundations of human power and privilege. It was a reminder that even the most deeply entrenched systems of inequality could be overturned, that justice was not a distant dream, but a tangible possibility. Now, shift your gaze to a modern farmer, tilling the soil, planting seeds, nurturing the earth. He labors, he sweats, he invests his very life into the land. Yet, even in his toil, he is reminded that the soil he cultivates is not his to own, absolutely. He is a steward, a caretaker, entrusted with the responsibility to nurture the earth, to bring forth its bounty, not for his own aggrandizement, but for the sustenance of the community. To steal, then, is not merely to violate a human law, but to defy a divine order. It is to assert a false claim of absolute ownership over that which ultimately belongs to God. It is to elevate human desires above divine wisdom, to place personal ambition above communal well-being. It is to forget that we are all, in the end, tenants on God's earth, temporary residents in a world created for all. The biblical understanding of ownership is not a call to radical egalitarianism, a leveling of all possessions. Rather, it is a call to radical responsibility, a recognition that wealth and resources are gifts entrusted to us for the common good. It is a call to cultivate a spirit of generosity, to share our abundance with those who lack, to build a society where the dignity of every person is honored and where the fruits of the earth are shared justly. This is a profound challenge, a radical reorientation of our perspective. It invites us to see the world not as a collection of commodities to be exploited, but as a sacred trust, a gift to be cherished. It invites us to see our possessions not as badges of status, but as instruments of service, tools for building a more just and compassionate world. The land is the Lord's, and we are its stewards. This truth, etched in the ancient texts, remains as relevant today as it was millennia ago. It is a call to remember our place in the grand scheme of creation, to recognize our dependence on God's providential care, and to live in accordance with the divine vision of justice and equity. It is a call to transform our understanding of ownership, to move from a culture of acquisition to a culture of stewardship, from a society of hoarding to a community of sharing. In embracing this truth, we not only honor the divine order, but we also participate in the very work of God, the work of creating a world where justice and peace reign, where the dignity of every person is affirmed, and where the fruits of the earth are shared in abundance. It is a call to live, not as masters of the earth, but as humble servants, grateful recipients of God's boundless generosity. Prophetic outcry. Theft is violence. The prophets of Israel, those fiery voices of conscience, did not mince words when it came to the sin of theft. They saw it not as a mere transgression of property rights, but as a profound moral and spiritual wound, a violation of the very fabric of human community. "You sell the poor for a pair of sandals," Amos thundered, his words like a whiplash against the complacency of the wealthy and powerful. Amos 2:6. It was not just the act of stealing that outraged the prophets, but the systemic injustice, the exploitation of the vulnerable, the callous disregard for human dignity that lay beneath it. Their words echo through the centuries, a timeless indictment of any society that allows the pursuit of wealth to trample upon the rights and well-being of the marginalized. The prophet's vision of justice was not merely a matter of legal restitution, but a radical reordering of society, a dismantling of the structures that perpetuated inequality and oppression. Fast forward to the present day, and we see echoes of the prophet's lament in the Occupy Wall Street protests, in the voices of those who decry the widening gap between the rich and the poor, in the struggles of those who are evicted from their homes, their livelihoods shattered, their dignity trampled upon. These are not just economic issues. They are moral and spiritual issues, manifestations of a society that has lost its way, a society that has forgotten the sacredness of human life and the importance of the common good. For Thomas Aquinas, one of the greatest theologians of the Christian tradition, theft was not simply a matter of ethics. It was a violation of natural law, a fundamental disorder of the human community. He saw it as an act that harmed not only the victim, but also the perpetrator, twisting their souls, corrupting their hearts, and separating them from the divine order. Aquinas' insight is profound. Theft in all its forms, whether it be the grand larceny of the powerful or the petty theft of the desperate, leaves a scar, a wound in the human spirit. It erodes trust, breeds resentment, and perpetuates a cycle of violence and despair. It is a cancer that eats away at the very foundations of society, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and shattered dreams. The prophet's words, the wisdom of Aquinas, these are not just ancient relics, but timeless truths, beacons of light in a world often shrouded in darkness. They remind us that true wealth is not measured in material possessions, but in the flourishing of human lives, in the bonds of solidarity and compassion that bind us together. They remind us that the pursuit of justice is not just a legal or political matter, but a spiritual imperative, a call to heal the wounds of our society, to restore the dignity of every person, and to build a world where the needs of the least among us are placed at the center. This is a daunting task, a challenge that demands our collective courage and commitment. It requires us to confront the injustices that lurk within our own hearts and within the structures of our society. It requires us to cultivate a spirit of generosity, to share our resources, to stand in solidarity with those who have been marginalized and oppressed. The prophet's words, like a persistent whisper, continue to challenge us, to call us to a higher way of being, a way of life that reflects the image of God, a way of life that is marked by justice, compassion, and love. Let us heed their call. Let us embrace the challenge, and let us strive to build a world where the dignity of every person is honored and where the scourge of theft, in all its forms, is finally overcome. Aquinas, property and the common good. Thomas Aquinas, the towering intellect of the medieval era, illuminated the relationship between ownership and the common good with unparalleled clarity and precision. For Aquinas, ownership is not an inherent right, an absolute dominion to be exercised without restraint. Rather, it is a means, a tool, a responsibility, and never an end in itself. He argued that while individuals have the right to acquire and manage property, This right is always subordinate to the higher principle of the common good. In Summa Theologiae, Q66, Aquinas meticulously lays out his argument. Man ought to possess external things as his own, not as his own only, but also as common, so that he is ready to communicate them to others in their necessity. This seemingly simple statement encapsulates a profound theological and ethical vision. Aquinas recognized the practical benefits of private property. He noted that individuals are more diligent in caring for what is their own, that order and efficiency are enhanced when responsibilities are clearly defined, and that disputes are minimized when ownership is established. However, these practical considerations never overshadow the fundamental truth that all material goods are ultimately destined for the sustenance of all. Wealth, therefore, according to Aquinas, must serve the common good. It is not to be hoarded, accumulated for its own sake, or used to exploit others. Instead, it is to be employed in a way that benefits the entire community, ensuring that the basic needs of all are met. To hoard, to accumulate wealth while others are in need is, in Aquinas' view, a form of theft by neglect. It is a failure to fulfill one's moral obligation to share one's resources with those who lack them. Conversely, generosity is not merely an act of charity, but an act of justice in motion. It is the practical expression of the principle that all goods are destined for the common good. It is the recognition that we are all members of one body, and that the well-being of each is inextricably linked to the well-being of all. Aquinas saw economics as a subset of moral philosophy. For Aquinas, it is good that buyers and sellers negotiate and settle on a price agreeable to each side. The market price is the just price if the buyer and seller are honest and not trying to take advantage of each other. A just price should reflect the worth or value of a good or service. Aquinas affirms just prices vary over time and place. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, CCCC 2409, echoing Aquinas' wisdom, minces no words. The seventh commandment forbids theft and economic practices that marginalize the poor. This is not merely a legalistic injunction, but a profound moral and spiritual challenge. It is a call to create economic systems that serve the common good, that promote justice and equity, and that protect the dignity of every person, especially the most vulnerable. Aquinas' vision challenges us to move beyond a narrow, individualistic understanding of ownership to a broader, more communal understanding. It invites us to see our possessions not as badges of status or instruments of power, but as gifts entrusted to us for the service of others. It calls us to cultivate a spirit of generosity, to share our resources, and to work to create a society where the needs of all are met and where the dignity of every person is honored. It reminds us that true prosperity is not measured in material wealth, but in the flourishing of human lives and the strength of human community. Calvin work as divine vocation. John Calvin, the influential reformer, profoundly reshaped the understanding of work, transforming it from a mere necessity for survival into a vocatio, a sacred calling, a divine mandate. He recognized that labor in its myriad forms was not simply a means to an end, a way to earn a living, but a participation in God's creative work, a manifestation of His glory in the world. He elevated the ordinary tasks of daily life, imbuing them with spiritual significance, and reminding believers that every profession, every trade, every act of service could be a conduit for divine grace. In the bustling streets of Geneva, Calvin envisioned a community where artisans, merchants, and laborers alike understood their work as a sacred trust, a responsibility entrusted to them by God. He saw the meticulous craftsmanship of a watchmaker, the diligent labor of a farmer, and the honest dealings of a merchant as acts of worship, expressions of gratitude for God's provision. Work, in Calvin's view, was not a burden to be endured, but a privilege to be embraced, a way to contribute to the flourishing of the community and the glory of God. However, Calvin's vision was not a romanticized idealization of labor. He was acutely aware of the potential for work to be corrupted, to be twisted into a tool of exploitation and oppression. He recognized that when wages were unjustly withheld, when the fruits of labor were stolen, when resources were hoarded for personal gain, the sacred calling of work was profaned, its divine purpose betrayed. The cries of the exploited, the lamentations of the oppressed, echoed through the ages, a stark reminder of the human capacity for injustice. The Apostle James, in his epistle, thunders against the injustice of withheld wages. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. James 5:04. These words, like a fiery indictment, remind us that the theft of wages is not merely an economic crime, but a moral and spiritual abomination, a violation of the sacred covenant between employer and employee. In the shadows of modern industry, we see the tragic reality of sweatshop labor, where workers toil in deplorable conditions, their wages unjustly low, their dignity stripped away. The fruits of their labor, the products they produce, are often sold at exorbitant prices, enriching the few while impoverishing the many. This exploitation, this theft of labor, is a stark contradiction of Calvin's vision of work as a divine calling. Contrast this with the image of a co-op bakery, where workers share in the profits, where decisions are made collectively, where the dignity of labor is honored. Here, work is not merely a means to an end, but a shared endeavor, a collaborative effort to create something of value for the community. The profits are not hoarded by a few, but distributed equitably, reflecting the principle that the fruits of labor should benefit all who contribute. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti 21, echoes the prophets and the reformers, reminding us that the economy must serve people, not rule them. He challenges us to create economic systems that prioritize human dignity, that promote justice and equity, and that ensure that the fruits of labor are shared equitably. He reminds us that true prosperity is not measured in material wealth, but in the flourishing of human lives and the strength of human community. Calvin's vision of work as a divine calling challenges us to transform our understanding of labor, to see it not merely as a means to earn a living, but as a way to participate in God's creative work, to contribute to the common good and to glorify God. It invites us to create workplaces where the dignity of every worker is honored, where wages are just, and where the fruits of labor are shared equitably. This requires a radical reorientation of our values, a shift from a culture of acquisition to a culture of stewardship, from a society of exploitation to a community of collaboration. It requires us to cultivate a spirit of generosity, to share our resources, and to work to create a world where the dignity of every person is honored, and where the sacred calling of work is fulfilled in justice and love. To honor the divine calling of work is to build a society where the worker is not simply a cog in a machine, but a valued member of the community, where their labor is respected, their contributions are appreciated, and their dignity is affirmed. It is to create a world where the fruits of labor are shared equitably, where the needs of the most vulnerable are met, and where the sacredness of work is recognized and celebrated. It is to live not for the accumulation of personal wealth, but for the building of a just and compassionate society where the glory of God is reflected in the dignity of every human being. Wage theft, the silent epidemic. Modern theft often wears suits, hides behind legal loopholes, and operates with a chilling efficiency. It's called wage theft, and it's a silent epidemic that robs millions of their hard-earned pay, leaving families struggling and communities weakened. The prophets of old would recognize this injustice, this modern-day exploitation, as a violation of the sacredness of labor. The statistics paint a grim picture. Studies reveal that a staggering 83% of low-wage workers are victims of wage theft. This isn't a minor issue, it's a systemic problem that drains billions from the pockets of those who can least afford it. One report estimates that workers in the United States lose approximately $15 billion annually due to minimum wage violations alone. From 2021 to 2023, over $1.5 billion in stolen wages were recovered for workers by the U.S. Department of Labor, state agencies, and class action litigation, highlighting the pervasive nature of this crime. Wage theft takes many forms. It includes paying less than the minimum wage, denying overtime pay, forcing employees to work off the clock without compensation, illegally deducting wages, misclassifying employees to avoid paying benefits, and stealing tips. Construction workers are often forced to work unpaid hours, their time and labor stolen by unscrupulous contractors. Garment workers, particularly immigrants, are systematically denied minimum wage and overtime pay, sometimes earning as little as $5 an hour. Temporary workers report high rates of wage theft, with almost a quarter experiencing being paid less than minimum wage, failing to receive overtime pay, or failing to receive pay for all hours worked. The consequences of wage theft extend far beyond individual paychecks. It has a devastating impact on families, pushing them into poverty and reliance on public assistance. The stress and financial instability caused by wage theft can lead to increased household conflict and even violence. It weakens local economies as workers have less money to spend on necessities, reducing demand for local businesses. It undermines public health as workers are forced to work extra hours to make up for lost wages, missing time with family, recreation, and necessary rest. It erodes community well-being, straining social services, and weakening community cohesion. Imagine a child's empty lunchbox, a stark symbol of the sacrifices families make when wages are stolen. The money that should be used for food, rent, and basic necessities is instead siphoned off by employers who prioritize profit over people. This isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about human dignity, about the right to a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. The phrase "do not steal" takes on a new urgency in this context. It becomes "do not exploit," a call to honor the sacredness of labor, to recognize the inherent worth of every worker, and to ensure that they receive the compensation they deserve. Augustine, the influential theologian, would call this structural sin. Systems and structures that perpetuate injustice, that steal life's dignity while feigning legality. He understood that sin wasn't just individual acts, but could be embedded in the very fabric of society, creating conditions that allowed exploitation to flourish. Augustine recognized that our essential humanness comes from embracing our interconnection with all of creation. Sin, in his view, is the failure to understand this and live in accordance with it. It is to put finite goods in the place of the one true good, which is God. Combating wage theft requires a multifaceted approach. Governments are implementing enhanced monitoring systems, steeper fines and penalties, and greater public awareness campaigns. Transparency requirements, digital record-keeping, and strengthened enforcement agencies are crucial steps. Businesses must hire qualified payroll staff, conduct regular wage audits, maintain proper documentation, and set up effective communication channels. Employees must be empowered to understand their rights under labor laws, maintain accurate records of work hours and wages, and seek legal assistance when encountering wage theft. Organizations like the Wage Justice Center and Migrant Justice Institute are fighting to defend workers' rights, providing legal services, education, and advocacy. Labor unions play a vital role in advocating for workers' rights and combating wage theft. Ultimately, addressing wage theft is a moral imperative. It's about creating a society where work is truly a vocation, a calling that is honored and respected, where every worker receives a just day's pay, and where the dignity of labor is upheld. Environmental plunder, stealing from tomorrow. Beyond the theft of wages and the exploitation of labor, there exists a more insidious and far-reaching form of theft: the plunder of the environment. This ecological theft, driven by greed and a short-sighted pursuit of profit, robs not only the present generation but also those yet to come. It leaves behind a legacy of poisoned waters, barren lands, and a climate in chaos. The clear-cut forests, once vibrant ecosystems teeming with life, stand as stark monuments to our insatiable appetite for resources. The oil spills choking the oceans and suffocating marine life are a testament to our reckless disregard for the delicate balance of nature. This environmental plunder is not merely a matter of ecological concern. It is a profound moral and spiritual crisis. It is a violation of the sacred trust that God placed in humanity to be stewards of creation, to till and keep the earth. Genesis 2:15. Instead, we have ransacked it, exploited it, and treated it as a mere commodity to be consumed. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si', decries this throwaway culture, SS 22, a mentality that treats the earth and its resources as disposable, as mere fodder for our insatiable consumerism. He warns of the devastating consequences of our actions: the rising sea levels, the extreme weather events, the loss of biodiversity, and the displacement of vulnerable communities. He reminds us that the earth is not ours to own, but a gift to be cherished, a home to be shared with all living beings. Indigenous activists, the guardians of ancestral lands, stand on the front lines of this struggle, their voices crying out against the destruction of their sacred spaces. They understand the interconnectedness of all living things, the delicate web of life that sustains us all. They see the earth not as a resource to be exploited, but as a mother to be honored, a source of life to be protected. The 8th commandment, "You shall not steal," takes on a new and urgent meaning in this context. It demands that we extend our sense of justice beyond the human realm to encompass the entire community of life. It calls us to recognize that the earth itself has rights, that the rivers, the forests, and the oceans are not mere objects to be manipulated, but living entities to be respected. The theft of environmental resources is a form of violence, a violation of the integrity of creation. It is a sin against future generations, who will inherit a world scarred by our greed and indifference. The destruction of ecosystems, the pollution of waterways, and the depletion of natural resources are all forms of theft, robbing future generations of their rightful inheritance. The consequences of environmental plunder are not abstract or distant. They are felt in the rising temperatures, the more frequent and intense natural disasters, the displacement of communities, and the loss of biodiversity. These effects disproportionately impact the poor and vulnerable, who are often the first to feel the effects of climate change and environmental degradation. We must move beyond a utilitarian view of the earth, a perspective that sees it only as a source of resources for human consumption. We must cultivate a sense of awe and wonder for the natural world, a recognition of its intrinsic value, its inherent beauty, and its sacredness. We must embrace a paradigm of ecological stewardship, a commitment to living in harmony with the earth, to protecting its biodiversity, and to ensuring its sustainability for future generations. This requires a radical shift in our values, a move away from a culture of consumption to a culture of conservation, from a society of exploitation to a community of care. It demands that we challenge the economic systems that prioritize profit over people and planet, and that we embrace models of development that are just, equitable, and sustainable. We need to invest in renewable energy, reduce our carbon footprint, protect our forests and oceans, and promote sustainable agriculture. We need to support indigenous communities in their efforts to protect their ancestral lands and traditional knowledge. We need to educate ourselves and others about the interconnectedness of all living things and the importance of ecological stewardship. The eighth commandment, in its profound simplicity, calls us to a radical transformation of our relationship with the earth. It demands that we move from a culture of theft to a culture of care, from a society of exploitation to a community of communion. It invites us to become stewards of creation, protectors of the earth, and guardians of the future. Let us heed the call of the prophets, the wisdom of the indigenous elders, and the urgent pleas of Pope Francis. Let us choose to live in harmony with the earth, to respect its sacredness, and to ensure its sustainability for all generations to come. For in doing so, we not only obey the eighth commandment, but we participate in the very work of God, the work of healing and restoring the broken heart of creation. Biblical models: Zacchaeus and Jubilee. The Bible, in its wisdom, doesn't just offer moral platitudes about justice. It grounds justice in concrete economic realities. It understands that sin isn't merely a matter of the heart, but often manifests in the structures of society, in the ways we organize our economies, and in the distribution of wealth and resources. And so, repentance in the biblical imagination is never just a private act of contrition, it's a public act of restitution, a tangible demonstration of a changed heart. Consider the story of Zacchaeus. This tax collector, a man who had grown rich by exploiting his own people, encounters Jesus, and something profound shifts within him. His response isn't just to say, "I'm sorry," it's to radically reorder his economic life. "Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold." Luke 19:8. This isn't just charity, it's justice. It's a recognition that ill-gotten gains must be returned, that broken relationships must be repaired, and that true repentance demands economic transformation. Zacchaeus' fourfold restitution goes beyond mere compensation. It's a symbolic act of overabundance, a demonstration that his commitment to justice is greater than his former greed. It's a powerful image of restorative justice, where the wrong is not just rectified, but surpassed by an act of generosity and reconciliation. Then there is the concept of Jubilee, a radical vision of economic justice enshrined in the Old Testament. Every 50 years, debts were to be canceled, Slaves were to be freed, and land was to be returned to its original owners. This wasn't just a pragmatic economic policy, it was a deeply theological statement. It was a recognition that the land ultimately belongs to God, that wealth is a gift to be shared, and that human societies must periodically reset to prevent the accumulation of power and the entrenchment of inequality. Jubilee is a prophetic call for a society where the inherent dignity of every person is respected, where economic opportunity is accessible to all, and where the burdens of debt do not crush the human spirit. It's a reminder that God's justice is not a distant ideal, but a tangible reality that should shape our economic lives. These biblical models challenge our contemporary notions of justice, which often focus on punishment and retribution. The Bible, while not denying the need for accountability, emphasizes restoration and reconciliation. It calls us to create economic systems that heal, that empower, and that enable all people to flourish. We see glimpses of this restorative justice in the modern world. A microloan recipient, empowered with a small amount of capital, opens a shop, provides for their family, and contributes to their community. This is not just economics, it's empowerment. It's giving people the means to participate in the economy with dignity and to realize their God-given potential. A CEO, moved by conscience, pledges to pay fair wages, to provide safe working conditions, and to share profits with workers. This is not just good business, it's ethical leadership. It's recognizing that the purpose of business is not just to maximize profit, but to serve the common good. The early church in the book of Acts offers another compelling vision of economic justice. Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own, but they had everything in common. Acts 4:32. This wasn't communism, a system that denies private property and concentrates power in the state. It was communion, a radical sharing of resources motivated by love and a deep sense of solidarity. It was a recognition that in Christ we are all brothers and sisters, and that our economic lives should reflect this reality. The early church's practice of sharing was not a political ideology, but a spiritual expression of their unity in Christ. It's a challenge to our contemporary individualism, a reminder that we are all interconnected and that our economic choices have profound implications for others. Walter Brueggemann, the renowned Old Testament scholar, offers a powerful insight. Justice is the public face of love. This is not a sentimental notion. It's a profound theological truth. Love, in the biblical sense, is not just an emotion, it's an action, a commitment to the well-being of others. Justice is the way that love is embodied in our social and economic structures. It's the way we organize our societies to ensure that everyone has access to the basic necessities of life, that everyone is treated with dignity, and that everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Justice is love made visible, love made concrete, love made real in the world. The call to restorative justice is a call to conversion, a call to transformation, a call to live out the radical implications of the gospel. It's a call to move beyond charity to justice, beyond individual acts of kindness to systemic change. It's a call to build a world where economic relationships are characterized by fairness, compassion, and a deep respect for the inherent dignity of every human being. It's a call to reflect the very heart of God, who is a God of justice and love. Modern movements, co-ops, and fair trade. In the midst of a world often marred by economic injustice, glimmers of hope emerge, modern movements that echo the ancient principles of jubilee and restorative justice. Communities driven by a desire to build a more equitable and compassionate world, are rediscovering the power of cooperation, fairness, and solidarity. From fair trade farms to worker-owned factories, they are demonstrating that another way is possible, a way that prioritizes people over profit and justice over greed. Consider the Kenyan Coffee Co-op, a testament to the transformative power of fair trade. Here, farmers who were once exploited by global market forces now have a direct stake in the value of their labor. They receive fair prices for their beans, invest in their communities, and build a sustainable future for themselves and their families. Fair trade is not just about economics. It's about empowerment. It's about restoring dignity to those who have been marginalized and creating a system where the fruits of labor are shared equitably. It's a tangible expression of the principle that every person, regardless of their location or circumstance, deserves a just return for their work. Then there are the credit unions, institutions that serve the unbanked, the marginalized, and the underserved. These financial cooperatives, owned and operated by their members, provide access to affordable loans, savings accounts, and financial education. They empower individuals and communities to build economic self-sufficiency, to break the cycle of poverty, and to participate fully in the economic life of their communities. They are a testament to the power of collective action, a reminder that financial institutions can be instruments of justice rather than tools of exploitation. And in the streets, voices rise, demanding housing reform, protesting against the eviction of families, and calling for an end to the predatory practices of landlords. These movements, often led by the poor and marginalized themselves, are a powerful reminder that justice is not something to be bestowed from above, but something to be demanded from below. They are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a refusal to accept injustice as inevitable, and a determination to build a world where everyone has access to safe, affordable housing. Dorothy Day, the radical social activist and founder of the Catholic worker movement, understood the insidious nature of theft, not just in its overt forms, but in the systemic injustices that deny people their basic human rights. She saw that the denial of food, shelter, and health care was a form of theft, a violation of human dignity. Her clarion call, "Food for the hungry is a human right, not charity," resonated with the prophets of old, reminding us that justice is not a matter of benevolence, but a fundamental obligation. She embodied the radical gospel call to identify with the poor, to share their burdens, and to work tirelessly for a society where everyone's basic needs are met. These modern movements, in their diverse forms, are reviving the spirit of Jubilee, the ancient vision of economic justice. They are challenging the dominant paradigms of profit-driven capitalism and demonstrating that alternative models are not only possible, but essential. They are building communities where cooperation, fairness, and solidarity are not mere ideals, but lived realities. They remind us that the 8th commandment, "You shall not steal," is not just a personal injunction, but a social imperative. It's a call to build economic systems that reflect the values of justice, compassion, and respect for human dignity. It's a call to create a world where the fruits of labor are shared equitably, where the needs of the most vulnerable are met, and where the dignity of every person is affirmed. These movements are not utopian fantasies, but tangible expressions of hope, signs of a world being born anew. They are a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, we can choose to build a more just and compassionate world. They are a call to action, an invitation to participate in the work of healing and restoration, to become agents of change, and to build a future where the sacred bond of trust and justice is honored in every aspect of our lives. The Eucharist, economy of gift. At the heart of the Christian faith lies a radical act of self-giving, a gesture that redefines the very nature of economy. It is the Eucharist, the sacred meal, where scarcity is transformed into abundance, and the logic of accumulation is overturned by the overflowing generosity of God. Take, eat, this is my body. Matthew 26:26. These words, uttered by Christ at the Last Supper, are not merely a ritualistic formula. They are a profound theological statement, a declaration that the ultimate reality is not scarcity, but gift, not hoarding. In the Eucharist, Christ offers himself, his very being, as food for the world. This self-gift is not a one-time event, but a perpetual act of love, a continuous outpouring of grace that sustains and nourishes the community of believers. It is a radical subversion of the logic of the world, where resources are often hoarded and the powerful exploit the vulnerable. In the Eucharist, Christ models a different way, an economy of gift, where abundance is found not in accumulation, but in self-giving. The priest, elevating the host, presents not just bread, but the very body of Christ, a symbol of divine generosity that transcends all human limitations. This act of offering is a reminder that all we have is a gift, a trust entrusted to us for the common good. It challenges us to see our possessions not as private property, but as instruments of service, tools for building a more just and compassionate world. The volunteers stocking the shelves of a food pantry embody this Eucharistic economy of gift. They share their time, their energy, and their resources to ensure that those who are hungry are fed, that those who are in need are cared for. They recognize that the bread they distribute is not merely physical sustenance, but a symbol of the body of Christ, broken and shared for the life of the world. The family sharing a meal with refugees extends the Eucharistic table beyond the walls of the church. They open their homes, their hearts, and their resources to those who have been displaced, those who have lost everything. They recognize that in welcoming the stranger, they are welcoming Christ himself, that in sharing their bread, they are participating in the divine economy of gift. St. John Chrysostom, the golden-tongued preacher of the early church, understood the radical implications of the Eucharist. He saw that the act of sharing was not merely a matter of charity, but a fundamental expression of Christian discipleship. Not to share wealth, he declared, is to steal from the poor. These words, like a fiery indictment, challenge us to examine our own hearts, to confront the subtle ways in which we may be complicit in systems of injustice. Chrysostom's understanding stemmed from a deep understanding of the early church's practice of sharing and his own experience with the vast disparity of wealth in his time. He saw that the accumulation of wealth, while others lacked basic necessities, was a direct contradiction of the gospel message. He understood that the Eucharist, the sharing of the body of Christ, demanded a corresponding sharing of material resources. The Eucharist is not merely a symbolic act. It is a transformative encounter with the living Christ. It is a call to conversion, a call to radical generosity, a call to build a world where the economy of gift prevails. It is a reminder that true abundance is found not in hoarding, but in sharing, not in accumulation, but in self-giving. This Eucharistic vision challenges us to create economic systems that mirror the divine economy of gift, systems that prioritize human dignity, that promote justice and equity, and that ensure that the fruits of the earth are shared equitably. It calls us to move beyond a culture of consumption to a culture of communion, from a society of exploitation to a community of care. It invites us to see our work not merely as a means to earn a living, but as a way to participate in God's creative work, to contribute to the common good, and to glorify God. It calls us to create workplaces where the dignity of every worker is honored, where wages are just, and where the fruits of labor are shared equitably. It challenges us to be stewards of the earth, to protect its biodiversity, and to ensure its sustainability for future generations. It calls us to move beyond a utilitarian view of the earth, a perspective that sees it only as a source of resources for human consumption, to a perspective that recognizes its intrinsic value, its inherent beauty, and its sacredness. The Eucharist, in its profound simplicity, is a radical act of resistance against the forces of greed and injustice. It is a beacon of hope, a sign of a world being born anew, a world where the economy of gift prevails, and where the sacred bond of trust and justice is honored in every aspect of our lives. It is a call to build a new covenant, a covenant of sharing, a covenant of love, a covenant of justice, a covenant that reflects the very heart of God, a society restored. The commandment, "Do not steal," often confined to the realm of individual morality, holds within it the blueprint for a transformed society, a vision of collective flourishing. When we truly honor this ancient injunction, when we allow it to permeate the structures of our communities and the rhythms of our economies, we begin to birth a world where the prophetic vision of Micah comes to life. They shall sit under their own vines and fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. Micah 4:04. This is not a utopian fantasy, but a tangible possibility. A world where security, peace, and abundance are the birthright of all. Imagine a city park, a vibrant oasis of green, blossoming in what was once a food desert, a barren landscape of deprivation. This park, a collective effort of community members, local businesses, and government initiatives, provides access to fresh, healthy food, recreational spaces, and opportunities for social connection. It's a symbol of restorative justice, a tangible expression of the principle that everyone deserves access to the basic necessities of life, regardless of their zip code or socioeconomic status. This park is not just a patch of green, it's a testament to the power of community, a symbol of hope, a tangible sign that it is possible to transform places of neglect to places of abundance. Then picture a solar farm, its panels gleaming under the sun, powering a village that once relied on polluting and expensive fossil fuels. This farm, a collective investment in renewable energy, not only provides clean and affordable power, but also creates jobs, reduces carbon emissions, and strengthens the local economy. It's a manifestation of ecological justice, a recognition that we are stewards of the earth, entrusted with the responsibility to protect its resources and ensure its sustainability for future generations. This solar farm is not just a power source. And witness the scene of neighbors rebuilding after a disaster, their hands working in unison, their hearts filled with compassion. They share tools, resources, and emotional support, transforming devastation into a shared project of reconstruction. This act of collective resilience, this outpouring of neighborly love, is a powerful reminder that we are all interconnected, that our well-being is intertwined, and that true strength lies in solidarity. This rebuilding effort is not just about bricks and mortar. It is a testament to the enduring power of human connection and the capacity for collective action. These are not isolated incidents. but glimpses of a society being transformed, a world being born anew. They are examples of what happens when we move beyond a narrow, individualistic understanding of justice and embrace a broader, more communal vision. They are manifestations of the principle that justice is not merely a legalistic concept, but a spiritual practice, a way of life that weaves trust into the very fabric of society. Justice in this context is not just a policy, a set of rules and regulations imposed from above. It is a lived experience, a daily practice of building relationships, sharing resources, and working together for the common good. It is the cultivation of a culture of trust, where everyone feels safe, valued, and respected. This culture of trust is not built overnight, but through persistent acts of kindness, generosity. It is nurtured through dialogue, empathy, and a willingness to listen to the voices of the marginalized and the oppressed. It is strengthened through the creation of institutions that are transparent, accountable, and responsive to the needs of the community. When we honor the commandment, "Do not steal," we are not just preventing acts of individual theft, we are cultivating a society where theft is unnecessary. We are building communities where everyone has access to the resources they need to thrive, where the dignity of every person is honored, and where the fruits of the earth are shared equitably. This requires a radical shift in our values, a move away from a culture of competition to a culture of collaboration, from a society of exploitation to a community of care. It demands that we challenge the economic systems that prioritize profit over people and planet, and that we embrace models of development that are just, equitable, and sustainable. It invites us to see our work not merely as a means to earn a living, but as a way to participate in God's creative work, to contribute to the common good, and to glorify God. It calls us to create workplaces where the dignity of every worker is honored, where wages are just, and where the fruits of labor are shared equitably. It challenges us to be stewards of the earth, to protect its biodiversity, and to ensure its sustainability for future generations. It calls us to move beyond a utilitarian view of the earth, a perspective that sees it only as a source of resources for human consumption, to a perspective that recognizes its intrinsic value, its inherent beauty, and its sacredness. The commandment, "Do not steal," is not a burden, but a liberation. It is not a restriction, but a call to freedom. It is not a condemnation, but an invitation to participate in the creation of a new world, a world where justice and peace reign, where the dignity of every person is affirmed, and where the sacred bond of trust is honored in every aspect of our lives. The promise of enough. The eighth commandment, "You shall not steal," is not a condemnation, but an invitation, a gentle yet insistent call to a radical reimagining of our relationship with resources, with wealth, with the very fabric of our shared existence. It beckons us to transcend the narrow confines of mine and embrace the expansive horizon of ours. It challenges us to build economies not based on the insatiable pursuit of more, but on the foundational principle of enough, a sufficiency that ensures the dignity and well-being of all. Imagine children, their laughter echoing through a community garden, their hands stained with the rich earth as they harvest vegetables. This garden, a collective endeavor, a symbol of shared abundance, provides not only sustenance but also a sense of belonging, a tangible expression of community. It is a living testament to the possibility of an economy where the fruits of the earth are shared, where the needs of all are met, and where the joy of creation is experienced by all. Then witness the street musician, their melodies weaving through the urban landscape, their hat filled with coins, not from the wealthy, but from the everyday people, the passers-by who recognize the beauty of their art, the value of their contribution to the community. This act of spontaneous generosity, this recognition of the inherent worth of human creativity, is a microcosm of a society where resources flow, not to the few, but to the many, where the gifts of all are valued, and where the dignity of every person is affirmed. And consider the CEO standing before their employees, turning down a substantial bonus and instead announcing a raise for the lowest paid workers. This act of self-restraint, this recognition that the well-being of the workforce is more important than personal gain, is a radical departure from the prevailing logic of corporate greed. It is a demonstration that true leadership is not about maximizing profit, but about maximizing the well-being of all, that true success is measured not in dollars and cents, but in the flourishing of human lives. These are not isolated acts of charity, but glimpses of a world being transformed, a world where the promise of enough is becoming a reality. They are manifestations of a society where the earth is recognized as the Lord's, its abundance a gift to be shared, its resources a trust to be stewarded. From the ancient echoes of Sinai to the modern cacophony of Wall Street, God's call resonates through the ages. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Micah 6:8. This is not a mere moral imperative, but a divine invitation, a summons to a higher way of being. It is a call to build a world where justice is not a policy but a practice, where mercy is not an exception but a way of life, and where humility is not a weakness but a strength. Let us answer this call, not just with laws and regulations, but with lives that proclaim the holiness of enough, the radical inclusivity of plenty. Let us build communities where the abundance of the earth is shared, where the needs of all are met, and where the dignity of every person is affirmed. Let us create economies that reflect the divine economy of gift, where self-giving and sharing are the guiding principles, and where the fruits of labor are distributed equitably. Imagine a diverse crowd, a tapestry of humanity, passing a loaf of bread hand to hand, a symbol of shared sustenance, a testament to the interconnectedness of all living beings. The camera pulls back, revealing a global chain of solidarity, a network of compassion that transcends borders and boundaries. This is not a utopian dream, but a tangible possibility, a vision of a world where the abundance of the earth is shared, where the needs of all are met, and where the bonds of human solidarity are strengthened. Final text overlay: do not steal. Instead, let the thief work, doing something useful that they may have something to share with the needy. Ephesians 4:28. The words of Ephesians, a call to transformative action, echo through the ages, a reminder that true justice is not merely about preventing theft, but about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to contribute, to share, and to flourish. It is a call to build a world where the thief becomes a giver, where the exploiter becomes a steward, and where the abundance of the earth is shared by all. It is a call to build a new covenant, a covenant of trust, a covenant of justice, a covenant of love, a covenant that reflects the very heart of God.